And we will get started. I just dropped a short poll and just a question in the chat just to get a better idea of where everyone's from. And we will get started in just a second. My name is Tim Needles, and I am a technology integration specialist in Smithtown School District on Long Island. So I do a bunch of different kind of creative work with computer science, and I'll be sharing some of my favorite things today, and we will uh, learn a little bit about some of the new tools that are out because there's so much that's sort of emerging at this point. So, I'm also the Long Island director for NiceGate. The NiceGate conference is coming up in November. If you haven't been there, it's a fantastic conference. Um, and I also am a board member for NISADA, the art educators in New York as well, for their curriculum. So I'm going to share a bunch about what we are doing here in Smithtown and some of the new things that have come out. So I see like people are from kind of all around and a lot of different um, roles, but that's fine. I mean, I worked as an art teacher and media teacher for 23 years, and now I also teach on the college level as well. So, I work basically kindergarten to college, and some of these tools are actually really successful with all of the age groups. It doesn't matter all the way to adult learners because they're just engaging. So it really helps. Um, so, I have a book, Steam Power, that has a bunch of these elements in there, and we will reference some of that today. It came out just as the pandemic was hitting in New York, which is difficult timing to launch a book, but luckily it had lots of online tools and resources that were valuable. But you can also see my social media is at Tim Needles on basically all um, social media. So you could always reach out to me and share any questions or anything that you do, especially if you try any of these new tools. I'd love to see what's happening. So, I've been teaching at Smithtown for 25 years. I've done a few TED Talks that I'll share in the resources as well. But I also work as a NASA Solar System Ambassador and with National Geographic, a bunch of different groups. And along with ISTE, and I know today is the last day to get your ISTE proposals in. So if anyone is interested, make sure you get that done. I work quite a bit with Adobe and also as an artist. So, I use some of these tools in my own practice, which is fun too. So, we're going to take a look at sort of where computer science interacts with STEAM. This is a new acronym, but it's an old idea that really, came about with Da Vinci. So it's been happening for quite a long time. I always like to say that every day is another opportunity to be creative. And, as teachers, we're always invited to lots of situations that are really limiting. But limitations are a great way to promote creativity. I find that teachers are creative because we have no other choice if we're going to succeed. So it really helps. And it's really helpful to model sort of that creative mindset and to assess creativity to be authentic. So, I think it should be part of the assessment. If you want people to be creative, you need to sort of assess it. And I love using creative challenges. So we're going to take a look at that. This was a big switch that I made, sort of like getting rid of the idea of kind of homework and changing it to creative challenges to really get students thinking outside of the box. So, when we start, I always like to kind of start with the thinking processes. That's part of what you see in the CS standards. So, we kind of take a look at the different thinking processes and how to actually use both of them, both of the really popular ones. There's lots of different thinking strategies, and I really like ways of visualizing them. So using mind mapping and things like that are really powerful. There's some great new tools with this too. Mind Mapper among them is a fantastic one. But computational thinking is part of the CS standards. So really, using this process is really helpful. And I always like kind of visualizing this. What I like to do is really, put an emphasis on finding order. So similar to sort of coding and that sort of mentality, breaking it down into pieces and finding the patterns. And finding solutions to the smaller problems and looking at it from different perspectives. And as a creative person, I always use design thinking, and I always think design thinking is great when you involve people because you want to start with empathy. Um, and using both of these thinking processes is really nice, especially to counter each other, to give different perspectives. So they're similar but different. As an artist, I found that the creative process really fits well with design thinking. And then in writing Steam Power, I found that it really mirrors the scientific process as well. So I go through tons and tons of sketchbooks, sort of like brainstorming and preparing, and then like I kind of incubate the ideas and make. And then revise. But there's crossover between all of the major different types of thinking processes, and I think that's important to understand too. That there's not one right way to approach any problem. It's sort of having a couple different you know perspectives is really valuable, and I think understanding that is really huge in the creative world. That's why I love to do so much global work, and get different perspectives from different places and different types of people. um, I always like to kind of compare these, and a lot of successful implementation uses more than one thinking process. But here's one of my favorite examples of like design thinking in action, which is that idea of desire paths, where people just kind of there's all of the sidewalks always come to a corner, and you see people cut off the corner and take the easiest possible route. So like why don't we design them that way is kind of the idea. And there's a great if you've ever heard of 97% Invisible, it's a great short podcast that does these pieces on design, and they have a whole show on these desire paths and what can be learned from them. And then in terms of computational thinking, like here's a map of New York City, taking a look at the patterns of traffic incidents, and like where the biggest traffic problems are and where the most accidents are, and then actually addressing that with computational thinking. So it always kind of helps to show some of these in action. um, but let's get into the creative stuff now. So like when we're talking about the thinking processes, I think as a creative person, it helps to have all different inputs and start in different places. So the ways I've used it in my class is building apps. So when we built apps, I had my design class create an app for my fine art class about art history. So like this was a good kind of merge in a place where you would use both computational thinking and design thinking together. We created a very simple trivia app where we kind of learned about the different famous artists and things like that. So it's a good place where all of these things sort of come together. All right, so let's take a look at some of the projects and tools. This is sort of the fun stuff. So the first thing I'll talk about is code art. So just let me know in the chat if anyone has tried code art. This is a really good place where you really see computer science and art merge in a really direct way. There's lots of great tools out there now that make it so much easier. And I always like to start with kind of simple tools. So like mandalas are great because they also have a mindfulness aspect. The idea of a mandala, it's a Sanskrit word for circle, but it means the idea is that it brings focus to the person creating it, and it really does work. So like there's really simple online tools like drawings. So that's a homage to an old Saturday Night Live sketch if you haven't heard of it. So this is a free app or website, and it just allows you to create a simple mandala. um, but you could choose colors, you could choose mirrors, and you have lots of you could actually animate it if you want to and replay it. Or you could do sort of more advanced things in Adobe Photoshop, or Adobe Express now is going to have something similar, and even in Procreate. So like Procreate's a great online tool for digital drawing, but it only works on iPads currently. So this is a good way to kind of start, because it's sort of an ancient idea. It's used in a bunch of different cultures, so you can kind of take a look at the history of it, and then we kind of make it digital. And then we take the next step of actually coding it. So, code.org is a great place to start. They have a free, hour of code tutorial that allows you to actually make sort of like a digital mandala. You could kind of create any kind of simple drawing. But it does teach the basics of how code works, and you sort of understand the architecture, which is really helpful. And you could take the next step after that and share it, which is nice too. And I like using this. Code.org is a great resource for especially our code. These are really easy to use. I've used them with elementary, middle school, high school, and college. So like, it's a great way for people that maybe are not that familiar with code to create something that is pretty kind of interesting. And you can take the next step into Scratch, which allows you to do just a little bit more, and you can kind of insert some of your own assets and take it to the next level. Scratch Junior for younger students and Scratch for older students. Um, and then like, I think AI and machine learning is sort of like the next big area. So code.org also has a really good collection now of resources that kind of introduce what AI is and how machine learning works. And I like it because it also, AI brings about lots of discussion, and some people are very fearful, but it kind of shows you some of the positive things that AI could do. And like any technology, I think AI has some really terrific positives and some potential negatives, just like anything else. But it does show you how like it could potentially help the environment, which is fantastic, and do some really positive things. And it also teaches you some facts along the way, which is nice. So we do that, and then I like to actually take the next step with students, and actually help an institution. So there's a couple different resources, and I'll share them at the end. But we worked with Mountain Zebra National Park in Africa. So they had all of these camera traps, but they just didn't have the amount of people to go through the camera traps and check all of the information. So the students, for extra credit could, just check 20 of the camera traps and let them know if there's an animal, a human, or a vehicle or a fire in the image. And it was really interesting. This is one of the ones that I got as an example. So obviously we did see a zebra, and then it will show you different types of zebras and ask you to classify it. But some of the students got poachers, and some of the students got other strange animals that they didn't expect to see. So taking it into the real world and actually helping, using AI and seeing the machine learning aspect of it was really helpful for students to get a better idea of how this actually works. So it's pretty cool, a fun way to kind of actually take it into the real world. And one of my favorite things to do is show like how AI works with art. So this is my favorite way to kind of show how this works. And Nicegate has a terrific podcast called The Generative Age that Alana Winnick does, and she's going to be talking, I think, next hour. So Quick Draw is probably the best way to kind of just see how this works. And I'll do a quick demo. I think I just might have to switch my screen share. So the way it works is, if you haven't done it, it's a lot of fun, um, and you're basically kind of playing Pictionary with the Google AI. So it's here. I'll switch my screen and we'll take a quick look at how it works. We'll do it together. So um, it is a free tool, and you don't have to worry about any privacy issues or anything like that. So I'm going to just hit let's draw, and it's going to ask me to draw a pond. So you only have 20 seconds, and it's going to guess. Hopefully you can hear the audio when this happens.
I see line.
But you can definitely see. There we go. So very quick, and shorts. All right.
I see Nate. Oh, I know. It's shorts.
So you can see that it's very quick to understand.
I see nose. Or moon. Oh, I know. It's pineapple.
And these are not amazing drawings, but it's getting it very, very fast.
I see potato.
I remember when I first started.
Or peanut. Oh, I know. It's megaphone.
Wow, this is the fastest one I've ever seen, I think.
I see line. Or computer keyboard. Or cooler. Oh, I know. It's oven.
So like that was a very simple drawing. It was just squares, but it understood really quickly what it was.
I see line. Or toothbrush. Or underwear. Oh, I know. It's anvil.
Right. So what's really interesting is that on any of these drawings, you could actually go in and see how it understood it. So this is a pretty bad drawing of an anvil, I will say, as an art teacher, but you can kind of see like it's comparing it against other things. And you kind of see like, these are some of the other drawings that other people did. So you can kind of see that it's measuring me against all of this data. So the whole idea is sort of like getting understanding. You could hit the data button right here and see the full data set, which is kind of fascinating. So for something like bathtub, here's 150,000 drawings of bathtubs. And you can see as you scroll over them where they start, who's left-handed, who's right-handed. It's just a really good way to understand that you need a lot of data to input for the AI to have any understanding. Um, and it's kind of a fun way to kind of learn a little bit about how that AI works. And then, one of the nice things about Google is that they share um, all of their data. Not everyone does that, but um, there's another tool that's built off of this tool called Magic Sketchpad. Um, and again, these are all found if you want in Google experiments as well. So Magic Sketchpad is essentially the same thing, but now you're co-creating. So it says cat. I'm going to choose a color and I'm going to start drawing. And then the AI, once it figures out what I'm trying to draw, will finish the drawing for me. So what's interesting here is that if you take a look at some of the things that they have, the AI decided to put some things together that I don't know why you would put it together. So ant and yoga. I mean, bee and flower, that makes sense, right? But like crab, rabbit, face pig, so like what does that look like? That's a face. So I guess it's choosing one of them. Um, but this is sort of an interesting way to actually, it's like, creating art with a 5-year-old, if you've ever done that, because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So let's change it to, I had the students kind of co-create with um, AI, and, it does make some interesting choices. But I think that this is, the future of AI in some senses. That, I heard at ISTE this year that, they said, every student that's in school today will likely have an AI colleague at some point. So learning to interact with AI and be clear is certainly something that is valuable. So just some interesting tools that help sort of share some of how AI works, a little bit of computer science behind it, and it's also sort of fun. So that's kind of nice. So you can see this is an example of one of the student drawings. There's a bunch of cactuses in there. And that gives you a little idea of some of the thing. And one of the nice things about some of these Google tools is we actually reached out to the creator. Her name is Monica Dessou. And we talked to her about like how she designed this and like what else she was doing. Like she shared some of her other beta tools that she's using. So they all sort of start with the same algorithm that runs QuickDraw, and she's creating a bunch of other tools from that. So this is me playing with it as an artist, just seeing like how far I could bring it. So this is like a super glitch version of it, just trying to make art with this AI that I felt like was interesting. So you can do sort of really interesting things here. And here's a couple other student examples. So another thing with AI is there's all of these new tools out there. So Adobe Firefly is one that I use quite a bit because it's infused into other Adobe tools like Adobe Express. There's Dolly tool, which is a really popular one that's made by the same group, OpenAI, that does ChatGPT. Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, really popular. Lensa was really hot for a little while because people were using it to create their like profile pictures on social media. Crayon was a free one that is a pretty easy one to use, and then even groups like Shutterstock. So there's a bunch of these. This was an image created. I put my own description into Adobe Firefly and asked it to create an image. So it did a pretty decent job. I don't think that's exactly what I look like, but it has some vibe probably that's similar. Um, so all of these tools are really interesting. I'm going to just look at Firefly because a lot of people use Chromebooks in schools, and this is a tool that you're actually able to kind of use. So you can kind of see like this is some of the examples that came up, and I think it's important too to take a look at the results. It's not all white people, and I think that's another thing. There's a big bias that happens with some AI, and I think it's important that it does. Like if you ask it to create a doctor, that it shows doctors of different genders and ethnicities, and I think that's an important factor as well. But creating with AI is sort of interesting. It has lots of possibilities, and I think it's great for brainstorming. As a fine artist, it's really good to be able to flesh out an idea with AI before I actually create. I think it's not the death of traditional art. but I think there's some really great ways to use this for just thinking. And then this is in Adobe Express. This month they have a challenge to actually just use their text effect. So you can create text and add any kinds of AI to it, which is kind of fun. So it's the Hello, My Name Is challenge. Um, and then they have the text to image that's built right into Adobe Express too. So this is a free tool for all educators. And the text to image I've used with a bunch of different students. I've used text to image to create images that students wrote poetry about. I've used text to image to create like picture books for like a social studies class. They wanted to do create images of history, but like the images are not available, so they kind of fed in the details and created a storybook. So they were doing the creative writing around it. So for those kind of things, and for fine artists, it's great to kind of flesh out ideas and actually do some of the design work for the brainstorming of how things might look. So lots of things, and I've never seen technology move quite as quickly as AI has now. It's kind of remarkable, but lots of exciting sort of developments there. Adobe also has some other AI tools that are really great for design. One of them is the logo maker. This is one of my favorites because you just kind of give it a little bit of information. You just answer those 3 questions, and you can create a simple logo. So it's really great. I've used this with my fellow educators just to create logos for their clubs and things like that. But as a teacher, it's nice to kind of bring in that branding aspect as well. So here's a logo I created for myself, and some from other educators. Um, and students love this because they're able to actually see what it looks like on a T-shirt or merchandise. And it does give you some terrific ideas. So it's again great for that brainstorming part. Very simple to use. And creative and interesting. So, I always like to say learning something new offers a creative perspective. So, with all these tools, especially the really emerging ones, it's super interesting to see, what uh, kind of new things you bring to it when you don't really understand how it works, which is kind of an interesting thing. So, next, I wanted to go into animation. But before I do, I just want to make sure, let me know if there's any questions. Feel free to drop them in the chat. And I'm happy to answer them. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. So animation is one of my favorite things ever. I'm a big fan of animation. I started a student film festival years ago, and it's kind of amazing what students do. Um, so again, in Adobe Express they have a really nice tool that even if you have no animation skills whatsoever, you can create with. So it's animate from audio. This is now in Adobe Express, which is great. So you could just record sound, and there's even an AI sound filter on it. And so that way, if you have 20 kids in the class all recording at the same time, it actually cleans up the audio so it doesn't sound like there's 20 kids in the class. So I love this. So this is great for some students just, don't want to have their image on screen. So it's a good reflective exercise for them to talk about what they learned, to create stories. I mean, storytelling is a secret power of any teacher. And to have students be able to create, even if they don't really have the skills, is really kind of amazing because it allows them to sort of learn the process of putting things together, and then they could build the skills as they go. So Animate with audio, really, really simple tool. I always ask teachers to just share one thing they love about teaching with it. Really, really easy. I'll show you how simple it is. There's a direct link or it's in Express now too, but they created a bunch of new characters. So I'll switch really quickly and show you what that looks like. And this is a great thing to use with any students. So you could pick any of these characters. I'm going to pick the crayon. And there's some standard backgrounds, or you could import your own as well. So you can upload images and choose what size you like. So pretty user friendly. And so this, I'm going to turn on that enhanced speech. So this is the AI filter. And I'll try recording really quickly. Hey, I hope you're all enjoying CS for NY and creative CS for the arts. So the more you inflect your voice, the more it's going to sort of animate. So it's now using AI to match up my voice with the mouth movements, the eye movements, and every character sort of has some different elements to it, which is fun too. I like that they have, as you can see, like above the loading, you see that they have a little animation. That's just smart. Because we have short attention spans and no one feels like waiting, but we're at 77%. There you go, 100% already. And we can see how it comes out.
Hey, I hope you're all enjoying CS for NY and creative CS for the arts.
There you go. So pretty good. And I can now download it or just open it in Express and edit it more. So it does allow you to edit right from the screen, which is great. So if I wanted to say, like, the beginning is pauses a little bit, I could just crop it like that and then hit download. So it's that simple, super easy to use. You're able to kind of animate with, like, kindergarten students could do it. And that's exciting because everyone loves animation. So it's a lot of fun. So I will just go back to my actual screen and show you some other tools. So, here's some examples that I did. I mentioned that I work with NASA. So I like to create gamified versions of it. So we did, like, which planet is this? Which planet is this? Well, sometimes this is called the jewel of the solar system. A year on this planet is more than 29 years on Earth. And you can't stand on this planet because it's mostly gas. In fact, in 2034, NASA is sending the Dragonfly, a dual rotor quadcopter like a drone, to one of its icy moons. And it was named after a Roman god, just like my favorite day of the weekend. Can you guess what planet this is? Any guesses? That's right, it's Saturn. There you go. So really fun. Like, I did this as an example. I got to show off my voice talents, which is a lot of fun. Um, and then all the students chose different planets or different elements of space and created their own. So this was a nice kind of merge. Like, this is real steamy stuff because you're using animation, you're creating a game. We're working with science classes and art students. So it's a really nice mix of all of these things, which is cool. So there's another one we did for younger students, which is Where Am I? And that talked a little bit about, like, where you live. So you could add, images and clues and different things like that. So, lots of things to do with this. It's really fun. I love it even just for, like, back to school night to, have all the students kind of introduce themselves with a character. Really interesting. It tells you a lot about who they are, and a lot of fun. So, this is one of my favorite new tools for that question. Whoops. Which planet is this? Hey. So another favorite tool is Brush Ninja. So this is for, like, that sort of traditional style digital animation. So it's a free online tool, works on Chromebooks, and I'll show you a little bit of how it works. So you're able to kind of create some pretty cool stuff here. And I'll just switch my screen again. And the amazing thing about this is, so I could pick a brush. I'm going to choose a style. You have a couple of different choices here. I like the speed brush. You could add images, you could add text, you could add shapes, but I'm just going to create, like, a really simple, quick drawing. It does not need to be amazing. One of the nice things about animation in general is that you do not need to be perfect. That is super important. So, like, animation is great for lazy people. And a lot of students are lazy, so that really helps out. So I'm going to just add a second frame, and this is the most important button right here. This is called the onion skin. This allows you to see through to the previous screen. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller and change it slightly. Now, you do not need to get it perfect. You notice that, like, this is far from perfect. This is done quickly, and you only really need 3 frames to do this. And once you have 3 frames, you can actually see some animation. So I'm gonna hit play, and there you go. Super simple. And you can kind of create animated GIFs this way. Yeah, so PII is super important. And yeah, I can tell you, like, we have the same issue. I think basically all the schools in New York have the same issue with PII. So yeah, I tried to vet all of these. I know Adobe Express is no problem. Um, Brush Ninja, I believe, is fine too. I'll just double check for you. I'm not 100% on that one. But you don't even need to log in. So you could actually, if you notice, like I didn't log in. So like I don't think PII is even an issue with that. Um, but I believe we have vetted all of the tools that I showed you. So the other thing is on this, you're able to save and work on projects over time. You can change the speeds. You could also bring in images. So you could work from, like, you could do kind of like a rotoscope version of it as well. And bring in images for the background and stuff like that too. So you could search for images online. And rotoscope and draw over them. So you can kind of do something like that. So I could set this as a background. Right, and then you can kind of animate like that. So a cool tool. We've done quite a bit with it, and it's so much fun to play with. I can tell you, every time that I do an animation unit with students, I end up doing it longer the next year because the students enjoy it so much. There's something about animation. People are intimidated by drawing, but not when it comes to animation, oddly. So one of the nicest things to do with this is to collaborate, because one person can create a decent, like, 5-second animation, but like it's hard to do 2 minutes. Now students they tend to really get sucked into this and kind of create longer pieces. But I'll share some of the ways we've actually collaborated. So one of the best ways is to do kind of global collaboration. So this was with OK Go Sandbox, and if you haven't used OK Go Sandbox, definitely check it out. OK Go is a band from LA that has these incredible music videos. One of the videos they created was during the pandemic. The lead singer got COVID very early and did a video talking about making art together, and thanking all of the healthcare workers. So, we worked with the band. They gave us rights to use the music, and students actually created their own um, animations to the music. And, it worked out so well that they made it into a project and invited all people to kind of contribute one frame to actual music videos. And then people also contributed all the music. So really interesting. And they have lessons that are, based in CS, as well as all of the different disciplines based around all their music videos. So a great resource, so much fun. And the music videos are insane and amazing if you haven't seen them. I'll show you really quickly a little bit of how that looks. Let me know in the chat too if anyone has used this before. It's a pretty awesome tool, and a lot of fun to use. So they've been working with a makerspace, and this is a 3-floor like a Rube Goldberg machine. So anyone that does anything like that, like chain reaction machines, really fun. This is 1 minute, so this shows you they used one of NASA's cameras to shoot the whole video in 4 seconds. So just incredible high number of frames per second, and sort of stop time. This one is about perspective, and you can they show you the videos and then they show you little pieces. But this is probably the one that people are most familiar with, upside down and inside out. So they literally took the vomit comet, and learned about parabolas and how it works. And they went into the upper atmosphere to where there was weightlessness and made a music video. So I'll show you quickly. If we go in here, it shows you a little bit of the actual music video. And
upside down and inside out, and you can feel it. Upside down and inside out, and you can feel it. Don't know where your eyes are, but they're not doing what you said. Don't know where your mind is headed, but you're back.
So a lot of fun. You can see, I'll show you a little bit at the end. It gets to like a level of anarchy. That's a lot of fun.
It's time to decide. Are you here? Are you now? Is this it? All of those yourselves that you tried. Wasn't one of them good enough? Cause you're upside down and inside out, and you can feel it. Inside down and upside out, and you can feel it, feel it. Don't stop, can't stop, it's like a freight train.
So they have the music video, and then they have like a making of. But you see that they break it up for different grade levels and different uh, groups. So they have about a whole thing about parabolas, the making of, which is interesting in itself, the art of microgravity, and the art of experimentation. And this uses some Google resources as well. So, really fun. And they have one of the projects was All Together Now. This is the one that we worked with, and Art Together Now was the project. So you see arts and music. And so 15,000 global collaborators. It's really fun to kind of work on a project like that. And whenever you could do something with the students that actually, has a life beyond the classroom, it's always a lot of fun and really interesting. So here's a couple of examples of some of the student works. So all of these students had never done animation, and they weren't art students. They were students in like, a foundation level, 9th grade class. And, these were all students that didn't see themselves as particularly creative, and they made these kind of amazing results. Even the bad drawings were good. So it was one of those things that, like, animation is something that anyone could really do and be successful at. So much fun, great tool. And you could, I like working at the high school level and creating animations for the elementary school and having the different levels of kids work together. So lots of fun stuff there. So the next thing I want to talk about is augmented reality. Here's another great place. AR and VR is another one of the really big burgeoning areas. So one of my favorite tools, like this one actually has a cost. It's $1.99, pretty cheap, but I only, need one version of it. So Weird Type. This is a tool that just does augmented reality with type. It was created at a conference by Zach Lieberman. And if you don't know him, he creates some really interesting creative technology tools. But you're able to do AR and actually, you create words in augmented reality spaces and then have them explode or have them come together or have them, this is a ribbon. So, what we did is we actually did video poetry with this, and I had the students, write short poems and then record videos where they are using the augmented reality. Really interesting results. We did it even just around the school building itself. We only used it on one iPad, and all the students kind of created really interesting things. And there'll be some examples in the resources as well. So another one is Quiver. So Quiver is a really great introductory tool. So it's very simple to use, even if you don't have a high-tech environment. Because you could actually use just digital handouts. So one of my favorite Quiver tools is for Dot Day. Dot Day just happened in September. So just creating a dot is something super simple. I like to even do it on the high school level, even though it's based on Peter Reynolds' book, The Dot, which is a children's book. I think the message actually holds just as true in high school or for adults, that anyone can be creative. So I have students create their own dot. You could see on the screen like what the printout looks like. It has a little QR code. Again, we don't need to have Quiver like on all the devices. I just have it on one device for the AR thing. And then students take a self-portrait with the dot they created and then try to photograph it in an interesting way. Another kind of really fun tool. This is what it looks like. So this is the handout. And there's free things for education like Dot Day. They actually just created a new version because it's the anniversary of Dot Day. So you can see the 2D versus the 3D version of it, and you could interact with that 3D version. So I actually created the cover of my book with one of these tools. This is the Morphe app, which is,
so as many of you guys know,
some cool stuff now.
For over a year on
so here's
STEAM,
the process:
Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math, called Steam Power. And I am very excited to finally reveal the cover of the book. Here's some of the early sketches that I did. And this is the final drawing that I did on paper. And then I brought it into Photoshop. So you can see the design I created here on the screen. And I actually used the Morphe app to create a 3D print And that is what we use for the cover. I used the Morphe app's 2D to 3D option to turn the drawing directly into a 3D print design. And then we used an Ultimaker to actually make the print itself. And here is the final cover. Woo! Here's my book.
So that gives you a little idea of how he did it. I published my book with ISTE, and like no one had created their own cover before. I really wanted to create the design for the cover as an artist. So I was able to use the augmented reality feature to show them what it would look like and then create it in 3D all through the same app. So Morphe is pretty cool. And they've added things like animation that's really cool, and some other tools as well. iJack is another one that's really good. iJack is a tool that allows anyone to create animation and then take that animation and make it augmented reality. So I'll show you a quick look at how it works.
Bring your art to life with augmented reality. Augmented reality works best on flat surfaces like posters and stickers. Avoid curvy surfaces like mugs and pillows. To create augmented reality art, download the iJack Creator desktop app via the link below.
So I'm going to move forward and show you how it works. The reason I like this tool is because it's so simple. Like, it's basically 3 steps. Add the artwork, add your animation, see if it works, right? It gives you a QR code. It's that simple. So like basically you could take any video you create, just take a screenshot of the beginning of it and make that into an augmented reality. The example that you see up there is actually a mindfulness AR poster that I created for my classroom. One of the things I like to do is, mash up some of these different things. So animation with augmented reality and AI, you're able to kind of merge all these together, and that always gets super interesting. But this is really, really simple, and that's what's nice. So this is the video that I created, and it was really just for like a mindful moment. So we could, point our device at the image, and you'll see the animation pop up with some soothing music that I shut off just for the sake of today. But that's one of the ways we used it. One of the things I like to do is we took those video poems that we made that I mentioned earlier, and that's a project from my book, and we actually posted them around the school. So we were able to create an augmented reality art gallery. So all of the works, we took still images, and then you could point your device at that image and then hear a student reading the poem and see it animate or turn into video. So that AR art gallery is fantastic. It's a good way to integrate, technology, computer science, art, and creativity together. And then I like to mesh it up. So, here's like something that I created in Adobe Express. So it's the poster. Actually, you can see it behind me. There you go. And what I wanted to do is take it to the next level and animate it. And I also do that sometimes with just digital artwork in general that the students make. Sometimes we do it and we say it's specifically an AR art gallery. Other times we kind of just post it up around as like Easter eggs for people to kind of learn about. So a lot of fun. Hopefully I'm showing you a lot of tools that are interesting. I have some TED Talks. The first one's on everyday creativity. So this one was created, it was supposed to be in a live audience, and then it got switched to my kitchen during the pandemic, which was an exciting change. Then I did one at NiceGate. They have a TED Masterclass that's really terrific. And this was one lesson can change a life, just about the impact that teachers have and the importance of what we do. So you could take a look at them. They're both on YouTube and in the resources, but they also share some additional tools as well. And then, these are the things I think that bring this all to the next level. Connection, my opinion, is like the most important thing that we do. So like connecting with students, making those connections is really essential. When students come back to you 20 years later and they say hi and they visit you, or you see them in the food store or something like that, they talk to you because you made a connection, not because you taught them something about history or something about even art. So making those connections is really important. Also making the connections with the industry and with other educators and with other cultures. Like that's why I love collaboration, which is the second one. I have found collaboration is one of those things that has kept me, um, you know, really joyous in my 25 years of teaching here in Smithtown. I see some of my colleagues kind of burn out a little bit, and being able to collaborate and work with other people and learn things as we go. One of the nice things about collaboration is you always learn something in the process. So it's not always expected learning, but it's always important learning. And authenticity. So, like, I think it's really important to be authentic as a person, to kind of share who you are, share your, your process, share your ideas, your curiosities, also your failures, really important, but also being authentic in the projects you do. So, if you do a project that gets put up around the school and kind of makes an impact on the school culture, it's going to be so much more impactful. Um, so being authentic. As an art teacher, when I started out, a couple lessons that I did, I saw people throw them out on the way out. I'm like, I never want to do that again. I want to make sure, what do the students care about? I always like to start the year with like some version of a self-portrait that lets me learn who the kids are and what they care about first. So I try to tie in what I'm doing to them. So all of these different projects, I really cater to the students that I'm working with. So I never really do the same project the same way twice. I try to cater to each audience. And then sustainability. So I think certainly global sustainability is really important. We use the UN's SDGs in a lot of our projects and kind of look at that, but also personal sustainability, right? Not burning out, making sure that you remain sustainable. So that's mindfulness, and I'm lucky enough to be part of the Connected Arts Network, which is a group that was put together by fine art, music, theater, and dance. So a lot of fun, and it's funded by the Department of Education, and it is a PLC for artists, and it infuses creativity, obviously, along with social emotional learning and ED and I. So I'll share some information and the resources about that, but it's been great to collaborate with dance and theater teachers around the country, and work together, and also be sustainable. So another really important thing is actually having a creative environment. This is tough because so many classrooms I go in, I mean, certainly mine was like this. If you take a look at my classroom in the top there, it was all eggshell white. And I'm like, if you look at creative environments, if you look at Google, if you look at Adobe, if you look at a lot of these tech spaces, they're welcoming places that you want to do creative work in. So, I think it's really helpful to, if you're able to, change your learning space to feel creative, like to feel like a place people want to come to. So I invited students to create murals for the wall. Some of them are based off of like projects. So, we do the one word project at the beginning of every year, John Gordon's project, where you kind of choose one word to focus on, and some students create that. I've also invited professional artists to come in. So you see like there's an artist, John Bergerman, that did a wall piece for us. So just a lot of fun. It really does make a difference. And we spend so much time in our classrooms that it's really nice to have a classroom that's welcoming. And if you could have some like light and plants in there, it's even better. So that helps. I also want to mention experiments with Google. So, this is a world of resources by itself. There's AI experiments, arts and culture experiments. If you use Chromebooks, there's Chrome experiments and experiments for learning. Fantastic stuff. And this is a rabbit hole that you can go down for hours. There's so many great tools in here. Every time I use it, I find new things. They have them for all different levels, from like the blob opera, which is a favorite for younger students that just has these blobs that actually sing, to things like Quick Draw that we used previously. So I also like to focus on, when we do authentic learning, a lot of the projects, I try to do at least one project a year that actually benefits the school community. So we took we have a courtyard space and we wanted to redesign it to make it more functional. That's a great project that actually, is lasting in its impact. So we looked at different places. That's a picture from Stony Brook University. They have green steps that are pretty popular. So people really hang out there and spend a lot of time there. So we got a grant from Lowe's, and we upcycled some wood and created some seating for our courtyard that was more interesting, that like was more welcoming to students. We also used the design thinking and computational thinking process to do this work. And then students designed all the seating. So, that's a great sort of authentic way to do art. So we did even work in a lot of computer science in there too, which is kind of fun. So we used a lot of these different elements. And then I really love, these kind of creative things that actually make a difference. So I started working with science classes, so art and science together. And we started doing murals about water. So I'm from Long Island. We're surrounded by water. It's really important. So it made an obvious thing. But one of the things people didn't realize is that the water that goes down the drain ends right back up in our drinking water. So we created a series of murals, and we used a lot of these digital tools to actually brainstorm them, including even the AI. And each year we do 1 or 2 murals with the community for these storm drains. So it's great kind of pairing together a little bit of all of this. And then we also work with some global groups as well to kind of share out some of what we're doing so other people could do it, because we had to go through the process of getting approval to do this from the school, from the town, and from the state. So we had to get the paint that they actually use on the streets that is environmentally friendly, and then students had to learn about like the process of working with the government, which is quite a process that you can imagine, but it's really an authentic experience, and it also kind of beautifies and teaches at the same time, which is great. So one of the things I've certainly learned is that collaboration is a skill. So this is not something that we're all just born with. Some people are better at it than others, but especially when you work with other groups, there's some things that make it easier to collaborate and better. So this is a few things from my book that I shared. It really helps to set clear educational priorities and expectations, to really carefully communicate each step and have clear tasks and responsibilities, create a reasonable schedule. It's easy to kind of like be unreasonable and try to do too much, and then build informative and summative reflections. That's always just good practice for anything. And then the biggest thing is to really celebrate all of that unexpected learning and the teachable moments that happen, because oftentimes the biggest lessons are not expected when you're collaborating with other people. But it's a lot of fun to work globally. And we worked with like 2 or 3 countries at a time, and you get these different perspectives, especially with computer science. That's interesting because even the thoughts of like what's a priority changes and things like that. So I also, one of the things that I found really helpful during the pandemic was creating these creative challenges. So I have a bunch of them on YouTube. This is one of my favorites. It's an untraditional selfie.
This week with Mr. Needles. Okay, so this is one of my favorite creative challenges because it's so simple, but it really makes you think outside of the box. What I'm going to ask you to do is create a self-portrait, but I don't want you to use any art materials at all. So no drawing materials, no painting materials, no sculpture materials. Just find things around the room that you're in, around your home or your office or your desk space. And I want you to create a self-portrait, something that has a likeness of you. And then take a picture of it and share it. It shouldn't take that long, but be creative. I'm really curious to see if your personality comes through in these portraits and how it does. A great example is the artist Vic Muniz, who's from Brazil. So he uses different materials like peanut butter and jelly and garbage. This is an example from his film, The Wasteland. Another great example is Hanopi Van, who uses objects to make portraits. So they're food, they're made with everyday things, and they're really playful. This week with Miss.
So that's an idea, and there's a bunch of these, but then we'll do it with just non-art materials, and computer science is one of those non-art materials that students could use. So I also have in the resources, I created a video for ISTE that talks about some digital tools and creative tools as well, and this will all be in the resources. So here is the resources. This is a link to my Wakelet, and you could find resources for all the things I talked about, plus plenty more. And you can find me on Wakelet just at Tim Needles if you can't use the QR code. I'll also drop a link to it in the chat as well if you're interested. So I wanted to leave some time for questions if anyone has some as well. hopefully you all found this valuable. I tried to kind of cover a couple big areas where there's a lot of interesting things going on. Um, but it's great to be a part of this conference. Hopefully, I'll see some of you at Lights is coming up on Long Island, and Asset later in the year, and the NiceGate conference, and then of course things like ISTE and the CS4All conference as well. So let me know in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll just add, so again, I mentioned my book, Steam Power, and I just added some new resources on a website. I always like to leave all of my sessions by saying, be kind, be creative, and change the world. But I will leave this up while we're doing the questions. Thank you, Lisa and Alana. Good to see both of you. So if you do use any of these tools, definitely share out how you've used them. Again, there's tons of stuff here, and these tools are always developing. Hey, Sean, good to see you too. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. So I'm looking forward to some of the sessions and the next breakout too. There's really great stuff this year. It's good to see so many different computer science applications. So, in those resources, you'll see a bunch of other things. Oh, that's weird. Good. That's interesting. Let me see. I'll drop the link in. That might help. Wakelet just recently sort of changed slightly because there you go. Let me know if you have any issue with that. But I like the Wakelet resources just because I'm able to access them on any device anywhere. So I will share a little bit of what's in there as well, since there's no reason to keep a QR code if it's not working great. So, I have these are some of we talked a little bit about AI. Here's some of the AI tools. So I included things like the artificial intelligence and future of teaching and technology learning. So if that's from the Office of EdTech, and then Google's What is AI? But there's lots of other cool resources. QuickDraw, which we talked about. We talked about that Express usage, and lots of other great stuff in here as well. Canva, of course. Some of the AI things, and I just keep on adding to all of these. And then there's specifically one for CS Art and CS Music. So some of these we didn't talk about, but there's even things from like 3D pottery, and Pear Deck has a partnership with Adobe that has some really cool things. Codable, a lot of fun. Again, there's so many resources here that you could just take time and kind of play with them. But Incredibox is a fun one if you haven't done it. Let's end the session with the Blob Opera. If you haven't tried this is a lot of fun with younger students. Oh, good to know. All right, thanks, Lynette. So you just drag your mouse. Once you hit a certain level, you'll have another singer come in. So you can see why this would be fun with little kids, and then you could take them on a world tour. So we will go to New York since this is a New York event. So this is a kind of fun way to make art. And so you actually could learn about harmony and notes. And just have fun. So thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed this. It's always a pleasure to talk to other New Yorkers about some of these things. And if we're not connected, definitely reach out. I'm on all the social media at Tim Needles. thank you so much. Pleasure being with all of you this morning. Have a fantastic wet weekend, it looks like. And enjoy. Can't wait to see the rest of the conference. Thank you.